Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Super Mario Galaxy, Part 10. Okay, cool. I actually got that right. Fellas, it's been a few. And by a few, I mean a few days. It actually hasn't been that bad, but I just have to make it seem overdramatic for the sake of seeming overdramatic. Fellas, welcome back to another episode of Super Mario Galaxy. In the last episode, I don't remember the specifics of what we did. I think it was a 5-star episode, but I do know that I think we started on Ghostly Galaxy last episode. I think. I could be, honestly, I could be entirely wrong. I'm not really too sure, but fellas, the whole reason I haven't recorded in the last few days, of course, for you guys, there will be no difference in the schedule. I mean, everything should still be pretty much it should still be going as according to plan. It's just, I am not as ahead of schedule as I was a mere few days ago, right? I am now less than a week ahead of schedule. That being said, I have a lot to talk to you guys about, and this is very important to point out. You'd think I would have taken the opportunity to get the chain jump there. I absolutely did not. Why am I so determined to... Okay, my determination knows no bounds. But, yeah, fellas, there has been a lot that has happened since the last time I recorded. I believe the last time I recorded an episode, something that I did not inform you guys of. Okay. Something that I did not inform you guys of was that there was a Nintendo Direct. And it wasn't the Switch 2 one. I might have vaguely talked about the fact that we were actually going to be getting... there was this rumor that was, sort of brewing around, if you will, right? There was this sort of rumor that was... Okay, that looked very awkward because of the camera angle. There was this sort of rumor that was brewing around for a hot minute that there was going to be a Direct a couple days before the Switch 2 Direct. Now, in my mind, I absolutely discounted this about as quick as possible. Reason being that, to me, it just didn't make much sense, right? And I think, obviously, it's like I see the vision of what I was trying to do there. It just kind of didn't line up, right? Just kind of didn't line up. But, in my mind, the whole reason I didn't see a Switch 2 Direct being not a Switch 2 Direct, but a, Switch 1 Direct several days before the Switch 2 Direct was just because, to me, I was like, in my mind, it was going to get overshadowed by the Switch 2 Direct. But, of course, in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's probably going to be for less important games if it does happen. So, reasonably, I could see it happening, right? Okay, that's kind of where my head was at with it. Basically, I could see it happening, but I didn't personally actually expect one to happen. So I entertained the rumor, but I wasn't necessarily on the side of, oh, this is a rumor that is necessarily going to happen, right? That was sort of where my head was at. Turns out the rumor was true. The rumor was quite true, actually. March 27th, I want to say, we got a Direct. And this Direct also kind of, proved my expectation, because again, my expectation with the Direct was that it was going to be a lot of less important stuff. Like, a lot of stuff that just did not matter, okay? A lot of stuff that you just would not care about. And I think a lot of people will say, when they tell you about the Direct, of course, people will acknowledge that this was a good Direct, but they'll tell you, oh, it's kind of a mid-Direct for the most part. Guys, anything that has smaller indie games, you will scoff at no matter what, okay? And I've always kind of hated that. I've always really enjoyed appreciating a lot of these smaller indie titles that show up. Yeah, I know. Everyone jokes about all the farming sims. Granted, I do find it a bit weird just how many farming sims show up in these Switch Directs. That is particularly a quirky element of it, right? So, to an extent, I can understand, because, again, a lot of what people want to see is these cool big Mario games, whatever, these cool big Zelda games. And I get that, okay? I get that wholeheartedly. That being said, something you have to understand is that ultimately these smaller indie titles are going to exist. Nintendo is more or less allowing them to exist in a more open fashion than they've ever been able to on any Nintendo console, really. So yeah, obviously we got a lot of those type of titles, but there were two specific, okay, I'm going to actually say three because I don't want to ignore a very specific game that a lot of people are also very, very adamant about. We got three big announcements, actually, at the Direct. Announcements that I wholeheartedly was not expecting. Okay, one of them I was kind of expecting, honestly. It was, I think, in my little predictions, but the first main one, if I'm remembering them in order, was a Metroid Prime 4 trailer. A new Metroid Prime 4 trailer. Now, I will be completely real and say that I don't really have a ton of interest in Metroid Prime stuff. Well, I will say this. Okay, I think if you're going to do anything Metroid related that'll get my interest. By the way, I'm just losing it. I kind of went into this being confident enough that I wouldn't need the red mushroom, the red one. Fellas, that's rough. That's like rough and tough. You know what? I'm gonna be stubborn. We don't need it. Wow, we're 7 minutes in. This is all right. Less of a progress episode, I see. But yeah, no. So like, Metroid Prime 4 looks amazing. Can I just say, it looks beautiful. It is one of those Switch games that you look at and you're like, you hear all the memes about how Switch has this outdated hardware, and there are some games that honestly, and I do truthfully agree with this, really show that there is some aged hardware. However, I also feel a lot of it also taxes, you know, it comes down to like, they're not using the hardware efficiently, which, you know, I'm not going to sit here and defend the hardware entirely, but I mean, you know, people will sit here and say, like, they'll look at games like Scarlet and Violet and say, oh yeah, well, the Switch just isn't powerful enough. No, it's the fact that Game Freak are taking like 2 seconds to make a Pokemon game instead of, like, I don't know, actually letting a Pokemon game bake in the oven for a few. Like, that's what's getting me, man. They're not letting these games bake long enough. I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, ultimately the Switch hardware is perfect, but I really do think, honestly, when it comes to a lot of the complaints you hear about it, I think more of the issue is that these developers are just really acting like it's the most powerful hardware in the world when it's, you know, not. They're not using the hardware efficiently is always more or less the vibe I've gotten out of it. But yeah, Prime 4 nonetheless looks amazing. It is an amazing looking game, and honestly, it is kind of, and I would feel weird about saying that it is the game that's maybe thinking about getting me into Metroid, but you know, it kind of is. I admittedly, I should probably start with the Prime, you know, Prime Remastered and whatever, you know, those games that are on Switch. I don't really know how much of an interest I have in the non-Metroid Prime games. All right, so cool. Well, you don't have any arms now. I am normally a lot better at this fight. I think it's because I'm not locked in, fellas. I think that's what it is. But yeah, so Prime 4 looks great. The whole psychic abilities thing is intriguing, to say the least, right? It is intriguing, and I'm not going to lie about that. It's a very intriguing system. The thing is, and I saw some people saying this as well, it reminds me a lot of Tears of the Kingdom, okay? I think I heard some jokes about how, like, oh my god, wow, Samus has Ultra Hand now. Samus has Ultra Hand now. This is crazy, everybody. And it's like, yeah, I can see the parallels to it. I think it is still kind of in its own right, its own unique thing. They're really doing a big job at really teasing and not giving a lot of stuff past maybe what seems like it'll be like the first hour of the game, which is like, okay, sure, I guess. I mean, I kind of get their vision. Do I want it? Yeah, we'll go ahead and do this, man. We'll go ahead and do this. Get this stuff out of the way. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a bit quirky to me. So there was that. Now, of course, like I said, Prime 4 does not matter to me as much in the grand scheme of things as the other two announcements that were announced afterwards. So a little later on, we got the announcement of what was basically, and this was not on my bingo card. I don't think either of these two games were on my bingo card. One of the games was one that I was actually thinking about, but it wasn't one that I was expecting to happen at all, so I kind of just discounted it full send, which was Rhythm Heaven Groove. That's right. We're getting a brand new Rhythm Heaven game? Guys, that's insane to me. Now, for point of reference, for those of you who don't know, okay, Rhythm Heaven, first of all, amazing game. If you haven't played it, you should 100% be playing it, is what I'm going to tell you right now. We have not gotten a new Rhythm Heaven game in what I believe has been 10 years. 10 years without a Rhythm Heaven game. I believe the last Rhythm Heaven game was Mega Mix on the 3DS, released in 2015. And by the time that Rhythm Heaven Groove comes out, it'll actually have been 11 years because, and this is going to be a similar theme with the next game that I mentioned, they have 2026 release dates, which is odd. I don't know what this lineup is. I think there's very much like a calculated strategy happening here, and, if so, okay, fine, right? I sort of get it to an extent. It's a little weird. I'm not going to deny that. I think 2026 release dates for games like these two that I'm mentioning are, a little strange. But yeah, so we're getting a new Rhythm Heaven game. Was not on my bingo card, but I popped off hard over that. What I also partially lost my mind over was they did the classic Nintendo thing that they do where they have one last announcement, okay? Their one last announcement, and I wholeheartedly thought, when the trailer started, I thought it was an Animal Crossing DLC. Because it started on an island with what looked like it could have very easily been an islander or villager, right? It very much looked like it could have just been a case of that, right? I was a little confused why they would have had an Animal Crossing villager fart. No joke, they just started the trailer off with that. I was a little confused why they had started off the trailer with an Animal Crossing villager farting. But, I was willing to let it play out. And then the camera pans over to a different scene. And I see these Miis, right? And immediately, I'm already getting these signals in my head. Immediately. Just because the first thing that I'm thinking in my head is, well, Miis do not get acknowledged hardly at all on, what is it? Miis do not get acknowledged hardly at all on the Switch. So this is different. Either this is some new IP shenanigans, but I knew, okay? I knew deep down in my heart just by seeing, okay, we're on an island, clearly, and there are Miis. I knew what this was. But what cemented it was hearing the robotic TTS-like voices. What that told me, fellas, was that this was a brand new entry in the Tomodachi Life series. And when I tell you, fellas, that this made me lose it, I mean, I was wholeheartedly losing my marbles over this because oh no, I got a cough, no. Okay, I just, it was like a little puff of air that got through, that's alright. But this was shocking to me. More shocking than Rhythm Heaven. Because in my mind, fellas, for those of you who don't know what Tomodachi Life is somehow, Tomodachi Life was the second game in the Tomodachi series that started on the DS as a Japan-exclusive game called Tomodachi Collection, okay? And it was basically Nintendo's own sort of life sim, right? If we're not... Okay, it was their approach to a life sim that was more or less not Animal Crossing, right? That was what Tomodachi Collection was. And it was meant to be very comedic, very unserious, where I feel like Animal Crossing was cozy, but you could sort of... Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, man. All right, run it back. But it was very unserious and, Animal Crossing's approach was very, it was unserious, but there was a serious enough tone that you could treat this game casually as an adult and not have to be like, man, what am I doing? I'm playing all these kids' games. Tomodachi's series was very different, where it was very clearly, you're already having the more childlike approach where it is inherently it is involving Miis to a heavy degree, but more or less it is also the fact that its humor is just straight up so out there. We ended up eventually getting on the 3DS Tomodachi Life, which actually did come to the West over here and whatnot, so we did end up getting that, and it was a great game. It was a game that I think ultimately, of course, with a game like that, it is still going to be a very niche product of a game. I don't think there is any way around that necessarily. But what we ended up getting out of it was a game that was just really, really good and really defined my childhood in a lot of ways. It was very much my equivalent of a life sim. My sister, she had loved the Sims games growing up. And of course, I really had an appreciation for the Sims, especially seeing the Sims 3 growing up. But in my mind, Tomodachi Life was my life sim. That and Animal Crossing New Leaf, man, they were the life sims in my mind. And I knew nothing more, right? Ooh, I hate that destroys the booze. I really don't. I want to do the bob and weave, but the bob and weave is what got me killed last time, okay? This is the move. This is the move that made LeBron cry. Okay, no, sorry, I'm not referencing that. That's about as outdated as it gets, and I now feel an internal sense of cringe. But moral of the story, okay, because we're 18 minutes in, and I know we're not going to have time for another star, I need to go ahead and mention this. We got a brand new Tomodachi game, and it looks amazing. It's moving away from the apartment focus is something I'm noticing. They're moving over to traditional houses, but they're still keeping the island theme. And I think this is going to be very interesting. They also look like, in terms of the Mii's faces, they look like they're taking a lot of a Miitopia approach to the Mii's, which, if you don't get why that's significant, Miitopia had basically an approach to the Mii's. Okay. Miitopia basically had an approach to the Mii's where there was more general customization to be had with the Miitopia style of Mii customization. And I think what's happening is they're bringing over that Miitopia customization to this new Tomodachi Life game. And I think that is so cool. But yeah, this was also one of those games that everyone was standing over on Twitter and really nagging at Nintendo to make a new game in the series for. I was very casually wanting that, but I was not one of those people that was berating them about it every time there was a direct, right? So there was that worth keeping in mind. But nonetheless, man, when I saw Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, that is the name of the game, when I saw that come up at the end of the direct, man, I lost it. I'm like, you're gonna announce a game this significant to me 3 days? Well, it was actually 5 days, I think, at the time that the direct happened. No, it was actually 6. 6 days before the Switch 2 direct? You're going to do this to me? Insane work. And as of the time that I'm recording this video, 3 days from now, the Switch 2 direct will be happening. So things are just crazy, man. Things are just crazy. But yeah, that's my rambling. Okay, you get my rambling. I needed to get that finished thought out. I'll probably give some more thoughts about it next episode because, as I've told you guys in previous episodes, I can't do recordings on like an odd number. It just bugs me. Part 9 was actually recorded as one episode for that day, and it bothered me because I'm like, I didn't record my second episode because I I ended up getting distracted and hanging out with friends, and it was a whole thing. But that's neither here nor there. Fellas, I'm going to go ahead and hop up on out of here. I've been rambling for the last 2 minutes. Fellas, good episode. We got hung up a lot longer than I was expecting, but nonetheless, I think we managed pretty all right. In the next episode, I think we're going to be handling some of the offshoot 1-star areas here in the kitchen, and then maybe if we have the time, we might even do the boss. Who knows? Only time will tell. But for now, fellas, that's going to do it for this episode of Super Mario Galaxy. Fellas, if you enjoyed this video, maybe like, comment, subscribe. I don't know. It's your life. Do what you want. I don't really care. And I will see you, fellas, in the next video. Bye-bye, guys.